Yo, Zenith Nation, welcome back to the Catch the Zenith podcast, where I document my journey to get better in life and business. So please share and enjoy. Now, in my comeback episode 183, I told you all about my new goal for this podcast, which is to document my self-improvement and business journey to learn from mistakes and lessons to get better in life and entrepreneurship. In other words, this podcast is part of my diary where I share both my personal and professional experiences with you. And that's why I'm introducing a new format today, which is called Zenith Reflections. In this new format, Zenith Reflections, I will go through some of my tweets from the week on X and comment and reflect on them. And on X, formerly known as Twitter, whenever something pops into my mind or I learn something new, I share it there. So whenever something pops into my mind, whether it's a thought, ideas, lessons, reminders, quotes, everything I share there basically and document it, and hopefully you get some value out of it. It's basically my notes to self tool. And if you want to follow me, the link to my profile is down below. And by the way, if you're new here to this podcast, I'm Nicola, and I'm currently building an AI startup while also writing my master thesis in startup entrepreneurship. And with that said, let's jump right into it. First X post. To your future self when setting goals. First, step 1, list out your goals. Step 2, then define for each one what you're going to give up to attain it. Third step, multiply the time horizon by 3. Because it takes longer than you anticipate. And fourth, execute today. Don't wait for any arbitrary starting point. For instance, January 1st or your birthday. So why I shared this post? First, now it was a great time to set the new targets for the new year, obviously. I really love this period between the old year, in that case 2024, and the new year 2025. And when it comes to goals, obviously they are pretty important. But what is even more important, or at least has the same importance, is what we are willing to give up in order to achieve a certain goal. And also that we set realistic time expectations in terms of how long does it take to attain a particular goal. So I want to unwrap each of those steps quickly, which I just outlined. Step 1 is you list out your goals. Obviously, it could be a yearly goal or multiple yearly goals in different domains of your lives. I do it like that. I set my targets for my professional world and personal world. Within my professional world, I have targets, for instance, for my AI startup. We are currently working on a startup project, software as a service, and there I have a few goals that are like the main thing. Then I also have goals, for instance, for my personal life. One of those goals is a health goal. So you see, you can really structure your life in terms of different domains or areas of life, because life has so many different aspects. And to take that into account, I really like to create different categories that reflect my life. And I learned that, by the way, from Stephen R. Covey, where in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talked about, like, there are different, I would say I interpret it as, there are different personalities in life. You as a father or mother, you as a professional, you as an athlete or sportive person, you as a healthy person, whatever it might be. And for each of those personalities, you can set certain targets. And I created for that, like in Evernote, a quarterly target setting routine and reflection, where for each of those domains I set certain goals. And the same more or less I apply for the yearly targets as well. However, there I'm a little bit more, let's say, conservative when it comes to how many goals I want to set. I better set fewer goals, but really more bigger goals. But that helps me then to have a clear focus, as opposed to setting many different goals, but at the end of the year, I'm not really satisfied with the attainment of it. And that's exactly what I want to prevent. So the first step is simply you list out your targets for the year, your goals for the year. You can use stuff like SMART goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, which is helpful to conceptualize it, how to set goals. However, I believe in it's already better to have a goal, and it doesn't need to be perfectly fit to a SMART goal. It's also okay if it's just fulfills some aspects of a SMART goal, like that when is the deadline. Obviously, you have a 1-year time goal, or what are the milestones and how you want to attain it, etc. Second step of this post was then define for each of those goals, what you're going to give up to attain it. So I think this is one important aspect that most people don't take into consideration when setting goals. So what exactly we want to stop doing in order to achieve a certain goal. And I share with you a quick story here. I remember when I got into this whole loving work, when I really started to embrace work back in 2019, second semester of my bachelor's degree or bachelor's, I really started loving working hard. And something I realized is that obviously in order to become successful in certain domains of your life, in that time I was primarily focused on good marks. Yeah, second semester, I wanted to pass all exams. The thing was, I needed to give up certain things. And I become aware of that. So what I sacrificed was, for instance, I didn't meet anybody or not that often as before in the evening, for instance. I would work 7 days straight and not meet anybody, or maybe one time or twice per week maximum. And I realized that, okay, I just need to say no and define certain things that I'm willing to give up and that I actually will give up. And also fast forward when I started my podcast, Catch a Zenith, which was in summer 2019, then I started to learn about it. And the first episode, then after a certain time of perfectionism and procrastination, I published in April 2020. And there I also realized, hey, in order to run a successful or at least consistently publishing episodes, you need to give up certain things. And what I gave up was, for instance, my Saturdays and Sundays. Yeah, whole days I worked on those episodes. I tried to prepare the contents, and because I needed to learn all that stuff, a lot of different things I haven't done before, like how to record a podcast, but then more importantly, to research a particular topic. For instance, I once recorded an episode on how to focus or concentrate, good. And that took a lot of time to prepare and structure the knowledge, and then to record it, then to edit it, then to publish it. And those different steps take up some time, and I needed to make time for that. And therefore, certain things I needed to sacrifice. And those were my weekends most of the time. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any social activities planned, not at all. But I believe we need to make trades if we want to accomplish certain things. And also, fast forward to then starting my coaching business back in 2022, where I help people with ADHD, more precise, high performers with ADHD, to become even more productive. They're the same. I remember in summer 2022, end of August, I moved to Salt Lake City, to the United States, to work there for 6 months in an internship of a Swiss company. They had this possibility. One of my fellow students connected me to the chief operating officer, and I had this option to work there, and I was really grateful for. However, at the same time, I was running this coaching business, and I remember when I moved to the US, at the same time, I had 10 clients. And as you presumably know, when you start a business, you want to do things that don't scale. Like I said, Paul Graham said that the point is here, you want to do a lot of individualized work that doesn't scale for your clients. And I was working utterly hard, and I remember then moving to Salt Lake City, and all of a sudden, obviously I had my internship and I needed to run my coaching business and to be there for my clients and over deliver. So what I've done there is I said, okay, I'm here 6 months, and in order to sustain this business, I need to make a lot of sacrifices. And what I've ended up doing is, first of all, I said, okay, I will wake up pretty early. So I never had actually real jet lag. I basically, when I arrived, I went early to sleep. I woke up in 4:30 in the morning, and I did that on 99.9% of days, 6 months straight. And I worked all day, every hour of the day, basically. Obviously, I needed to commute to the internship. I worked out and I slept. This is more or less what I did most of the time. And so I was willing to sacrifice certain experiences in the US, obviously. I could travel around in the US. I could see different things. I could travel to California. I could travel to Las Vegas. All the stuff some of the people I knew there did. And that's totally okay. That I'm really happy for them that they had this possibility. And I had the same possibility, but I said no to that because I knew, hey, there are so many. First of all, I want to run this business successfully, and I want to learn so many different skills in business. And obviously business is hard because there are so many main skills and so many sub skills to learn. What are main skills and what are sub skills? Main skills are marketing, sales, product, customer retention. And beneath of those skills, you have many sub skills. So let's take, for instance, marketing and sales. So you need to know how to write an outbound message. Then you need to learn how to interact with leads, how to work your leads. Then you need to know how to schedule your sales calls. Then you need to run a successful sales call, how to learn how to overcome objections, then how to collect the money, onboard your clients to your product, and so on and so forth. And that's the reason why it's so time consuming. And that is also part of the reason why I said, okay, I need simply to sacrifice certain things. And in my case I said no to a lot of experiences. But on the flip side, I was pretty satisfied with it because all of a sudden I had only time for the internship, to do there a good job, and in my business. And I wanted to push me as hard as possible and see what I'm capable of. And I realized that my work capacity is way larger than I actually thought. Actually, I already knew it because I worked before pretty hard, quite frankly, for the past 2 years, or even more. But it showed me that you can, if you optimize for only one thing or two things, like with the internship and business, you can do that. And if you stick to your basics in terms of health, like you sleep every night 8 hours at the same time. I was always sleeping 8:30 in the evening, waking up in 4:30 a.m. Always 8 hours, or even a little bit more. I always worked out 5 times per week. I ate a healthy diet 95% of the time. Sometimes, obviously, I have this rule of every single meal per week needs to be healthy, except 1 or 2 meals, there I can cheat. But the vast majority of meals I eat need to be on point, precise. A lot of veggies, good proteins, good carbs. And like that, I could sustain really sustainably, basically. I could work pretty hard without feeling bad at all. Actually, the opposite. I love doing that. So, long story short, circling back to the second step I outlined, define for each of those goals you set for the year what you're gonna give up to attain it. And practically that means you list out your goal, and then behind your goal or next to your goal, you list out, this is of the 24 hours that are available to me right now. That's exactly what I'm willing to give up, or I will to give up. Then in step 3, I said multiply the time horizon by 3. It takes longer than you anticipate. So here the main point is that many times I thought I set myself a deadline. But then what ended up happening is it took longer than the deadline I set myself. First, the caveat here I would say is I believe in deadlines, and I think they are really, really important because of Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law simply describes a concept that if you have more time, you also take more time to accomplish something. However, if you have fewer time units available at your disposal, let's put it like, or you have fewer time available, you can attain the same, like the goal in the same time frame with the same quality, as opposed to having more time available. So, but on the one hand side, you have maybe 1 month, you took 1 month, and on the other side, you took 3 months. So a deadline can be really powerful to move fast, to work hard, to execute promptly. But what can happen in the end is then it takes longer than you anticipated. And therefore, to plan a little bit more time sometimes can also be helpful. Like, if somebody is obese and want to lose 30 kilograms of body weight, they can absolutely do that. But I think the time horizon is also really important to consider, and they're setting a realistic goal. And I remember, Bill Gates has this quote of people underestimate what they can achieve in a decade and overestimate what they can achieve in a year, something like that. And I think that is pretty true. And sometimes thinking a little bit long term, because some goals that we set ourselves are actually not 1 year goals, they are maybe 5 year goals. And sometimes I actually realize that simply saying, okay, this is a huge goal. Let's change the time frame. Instead of 1 year, let's take 5 years for that and see what ends up happening. And all of a sudden, it's way more realistic to actually achieve this goal. So multiply the time horizon by 1.5 or 3, whatever you think is realistic. And then the fourth step is execute today. Don't wait for any arbitrary or random starting point. So many people use arbitrary starting points, for instance, the 1st of January, like the start of a new year, or their birthday as their starting point. And I did that too. But I believe it doesn't really matter, like whether it's a new year or your birthday. If it's worth doing, do it right now. Because there is no reason for waiting for the benefits occurring. Why not to have the benefits of working on this goal right now? Like when health is important to you, then why do you want to wait to feel good? Doesn't make any sense. Why not to feel good today? And therefore, don't wait like for 1st of January. Obviously, it's now already the 5th of January while I'm recording this episode. But still, there is no reason for that. It's like, I will start on Monday, or I will start next month. Why? Why not today? So long story short, I will sum that up. The first post, whenever you set new goals for the year, or in general you set certain goals, not only list out what are your goals, but also what are you willing to give up? And also make sure to have realistic time expectations, or take into consideration that it takes longer to attain that goal than expected. And then execute today. Yo, Zenith Nation, quick break. Each Sunday I write a free newsletter called Zenith Sunday. In it, I share simple lessons I learn about doing better work and living a better life. For instance, in one of my recent issues, I shared how I reflected on the past year. This newsletter is pretty short, easy to read, and costs nothing. If you would like a little boost each week, sign up below. And now, back to the show. Next one. How I ask my coworker for feedback, or my coworkers for feedback via a Google form at the end of the year. First, I ask them, what is Nicola doing well? What could Nicola do better? What are Nicola's strengths? What are Nicola's weaknesses? And anything else you would like to share? And your name, which is optional. So let me unpack this post. I had a great conversation with one of my team members at Swisspreneur at our team retreat this summer, last summer in Portugal, Porto. And by the way, for those of you who don't know Swisspreneur, it is a non-profit organization for entrepreneurship, and I'm there part of the syndicate team. It's a volunteering work, basically what I'm doing there, to give something back to the entrepreneurship community, to learn, to get better in entrepreneurship, and really to express my passion for business and entrepreneurship, basically. And there, one of my team members shared with me that let's put it like that, the CEO of Swisspreneur, the managing partner, has an interesting routine how he asks for feedback from his coworker. And what he simply does is he creates like a form. You can use anything like Google form, for instance. It's like a survey. And you ask people pretty simple questions. What are you doing well? What could you do better? He does, I think, does it a little bit better than I did. He asked more like, what could I do more of? What should I do less? Something like that. I'm not 100% sure because I tweaked it a little bit. And I thought then after hearing that from my team member, like, wow, this is actually a cool idea. And then I talked to him personally, to the CEO, or also my mentor at the same time. And we talked a little bit about it. And I thought, okay, that actually makes 100% sense to do that as well, because I want to improve and get better at work, in life in general. Long story short, how exactly am I doing that? It's pretty simple. I create a Google form. For those of you who don't know, that's simply a survey. You can create it for free. And there I simply ask 5 questions. Actually, 4 questions that are highly relevant. The first one is, what are you doing? What are you doing well? What could you do better? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And is there anything else you would like to share? And then optional, your name. That's it. This is the whole thing of the survey, more or less. And then you send that to those folks you spent the most time with working together. That's what I've done. And like that, I could identify certain blind spots I had and I wasn't really aware of, like, what could I do better? I really didn't know about that. And like that, I simply sent that survey to the folks that I spent the most time with working together. And you can also follow this approach of to send this to everybody who has worked with you for at least 1 day. You can also alter that a little bit for at least 1 week or 1 month, whatever. But basically you're sending that to the people you spent the most time with together working. And then they provide you with free feedback. And then hopefully you can improve. And you also know at the same time what you're doing well and double down on that, for instance. So this is all, and this is really not at all time consuming. I did that exactly before Christmas, a few days before Christmas. And it took me literally, I pulled up Google form. I quickly created something with ChatGPT that it sounded nice, that the text is smooth. Created a form. I sent it to my coworker and I got feedback. I got so far, like, I guess 8 responses, something like that. Maybe 9 now, not sure. And then I already clustered the responses I got so far a few days ago. And yeah, this was really valuable to me. And by the way, if you know exactly my template, how I did it, if you go to my website, catchthezenith.com/newsletter, you will find a newsletter issue called How I Reflected on the Past Year. And there I basically shared in excruciating details how I did it. I shared the text. You can copy the text I used to create the form, and also the message I sent to my co-workers you can copy as well. It's pretty simple. So if you want that, go to my website, catchthezenith.com/newsletter, or you can also, if you're general interested in my about high performance in business and how I reflect my journey, you can sign up to my newsletter, Zenith Sunday, for free. Now, let's move on to the last post I wanted to discuss in this episode, which is how I pick a niche. I make sure that the market I'm going into checks off these 4 boxes. Box 1, or first one, huge pain. So the customer needs to be in pain. Second, purchasing power. They need to have the money to spend. Third, They need to be easy to target. Somehow you need to contact them. And fourth, is it a growing market? Is more business available in the future? So let me quickly unwrap that. I came across this framework of identifying in which market, which customer I want to serve back in 2023, beginning of year, something like that, I think, when reading the book $100 Million Offers of Alex Hormozi. For those of you who don't know Hormozi, he's a pretty successful entrepreneur. And not only successful in that domain, he's also pretty skilled in teaching business concepts, how to do certain things. And I highly recommend reading his books. And in this book, $100 Million Offers, he outlines a framework where he describes how you choose actually, how you opt for a certain market, or how you're gonna decide on which customer I want to serve. And those four things that I just outlined need to be all fulfilled, like checked off when you go in a certain niche. And I want to share with you a quick story how I learned it the hard way, why this framework is so crucial. When I started my coaching business, where I helped people with ADHD to improve their life in the first place, when I started there, I realized that, okay, this market, this niche has huge pain, obviously. Many ADHDers are pretty distractible, impulsive, etc. Then they were pretty easy to target because there are many ADHD influencers online with millions and millions of followers, which I can all contact basically. And there are also many Facebook groups you can go into and join. And then lastly, or almost lastly, it's a growing market. Yeah, definitely more and more people with ADHD are getting diagnosed. But one thing I missed, or I was aware of, but it's kind of difficult, the purchasing power. Obviously, because many ADHDers, they struggle with certain things in their life, their economic success in some instances is not that high, so they don't earn that much money. Caveat here, obviously there are great people, many people who have mastered their ADHD brain and turned it into a huge benefit in their life. They can leverage their creativity, for instance, or their entrepreneurial drive. However, a vast majority didn't have that much money. And I realized that, and obviously it doesn't really, in that case, it wasn't that impactful in my case, because if you simply contact many people, there you will always find people with enough sufficient money they can dispose, obviously. But I realized that with my first version of my product I delivered to this niche, which was a holistic video course coaching program with live coaching calls, one-on-one calls with coaching community and videos, I wanted to do everything for everybody with ADHD. I wanted to provide them with the best holistic program ever. However, what I didn't really take into account was that, or I was aware, but I thought I just want to over-deliver, was like, ADHD are pretty fast overwhelmed, and in the end, they don't get nothing out of this product or this coaching program because there is too much information. Said that, then I realized, okay, this was my MVP, my first version, to get feedback from my first customers. Now it's time to create my evergreen scalable product. In other words, fancy term for my second improved version of my product. And what I've done is I simply focused on the pain of productivity related to ADHD, more precise procrastination. And then I was way more precise, but still sometimes some of them didn't have that much money. And then I realized, okay, let's go one step further and let's revise the exact target customer or persona I want to serve in this market. And how I did that was I looked at my customers I had. I served a little bit more than 40 customers over that period, roughly 2 years, a little bit less. And I analyzed the best performing clients I had. And one of those best performing clients was David. By the way, shout outs, David. You're a great guy. And thank you for being part of my coaching program. And I identified what those best clients have in common, like David. First, they were pretty easy when it came to like when they do their payment in the first place, when they purchase the program, it was really going smoothly. Hey, send me the payment link, I will pay it, and it's done. And also everything I told them, basically, they executed. Or at least the vast majority of knowledge I gave them, they executed on it. And those two characteristics were like crucial. And the third characteristic I would say is they were already high earners. They had a job where they earned a lot of money, basically. Like, for instance, I had a consultant, or I had someone who was a head of department at a, I guess, software startup. And like that, I started to define my new target customer, which was people with ADHD who are high performer ADHDers, basically, who are struggling with some productivity related issues. And one of the issues I addressed was procrastination. And then all of a sudden, I had all 4 checkboxes crossed off. So now I knew they had huge pain, obviously. They had some projects that were still open and they haven't got it done, and they were in some kind of ways also unproductive in certain domains. Second was purchasing power. Now they had the purchasing power. They were high performer and they had a stable job. Easy to target, obviously, because there are some ADHD influencers out there that really focus on the positive traits of ADHD, and they see it as a superpower. And exactly at those influencers I looked at and saw who is following those folks. And I knew then, obviously, that's a huge opportunity. There are a lot of people who struggle with certain things, but have a growth mindset when it comes to ADHD. And then the fourth criterion was, is it a growing market? Obviously, that it was still the same. Yeah, it's a growing market. More and more people are getting diagnosed with ADHD. So that was really helpful for me to conceptualize, operationalize how I choose a certain niche and how this can evolve over time. And right now, I'm at a point where I'm starting my first software AI startup or company. We are pretty early stage and still in the validation stage, basically. And there, I will now also apply that to you or share with you guys how I thought about that. Again, huge pain. First of all, we want to serve private equity companies, more precise, to help them to conduct better and faster due diligence or an analysis when they invest in a certain company. For those of you who don't know private equity companies are like investment firms to a certain degree, that are investing in not publicly traded companies. So privately held companies, they invest, they, for instance, buy a majority stake, and then they try to improve, for instance, the operations of that company. Obviously, there are some nuance to it, but let's keep it simple for the sake of this example. This target group is interesting because, first of all, huge pain. Do they really have huge pain? And obviously there is huge pain. Imagine if you don't do a proper analysis of the company you want to buy. If you invest in a bad company, you can have a huge loss of your money. And this is something you want to prevent. Or you have overlooked certain risks, and the consequence of that is a huge loss of your investment. So there is pain, obviously, if you do a mistake in due diligence. Second, do they have the purchasing power? Absolutely. Private equity companies definitely have the money, or at least a good part of a huge amount of private equity companies have enough money. Obviously, they do huge investments. Not all of them are willing to invest in software, but there are definitely a huge amount of it, especially in the mid-market and large cap area. Are they easy to target? Yes, they are easy to target, I would argue, although some of them are private and don't really expose themselves to the public. But we do it like that. You can find a lot of private equity companies online. You can find their email address, etc. But even more powerful is we try to approach them via an intro. So if we know someone who knows someone at a private company, we ask that person, hey, can you do an intro to someone who is a good fit or is responsible for this area? We receive an intro, and there is already trust. And that's also a way how to get into those companies. So easy to target, I would say yes. Growing market, I would also argue yes. there are more and more private equity companies. That number increased over the past years, although when it comes to the amount of investments, there we could discuss, obviously, but there are more and more private equity companies operating on this planet. And with that said, I was confident that this niche could be very interesting, and we will figure it out if we will scale that to a successful business. And with that said, let's do a quick rundown of what we just discussed. So, first we talked about goal setting. Main takeaway here is not only think about setting goals, but also about what are you willing to give up. We also discussed how you can ask for feedback from your coworkers by simply creating a Google form, which takes 5 minutes, even less. Sending that to your coworkers you spend the most time with working can help you to identify blind spots and identify what could you do better and what are your strengths. And lastly, when it comes, and this is more a business post obviously, when you want to start a business, think about 4 things in terms of your target group. Do they have pain? Do they have the purchasing power? Are they easy to target? And is it a growing market? And with that said, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Catch the Zenith podcast. I'm looking forward to welcome you next week. Bye.